Dr. Sarah Chen never expected to make history on a routine Tuesday morning. The seismological readings from her monitoring station in the Atacama Desert had always been predictable. Minor tremors, the occasional earthbound echo of distant tectonic shifts. But today, something was different. The signal pulsed with an unnatural regularity that made her skin crawl. It wasn't seismic activity. It was too precise, too rhythmic. And it was getting stronger. "Martinez, are you seeing this?" She called out to her research partner, her eyes never leaving the oscillating patterns on her holographic display. The readings were unlike anything recorded in Earth's geological history. Dr. James Martinez looked up from his own station, his dark eyes widening as he processed the data streaming across his screen. "This can't be right. The energy signature. It's not coming from plate movement. It's coming from below the crust." Sarah's fingers flew across her haptic interface, pulling up three-dimensional visualizations of the signal's origin. The source was deep, deeper than any natural formation should allow. And it wasn't just in Chile. Similar readings were beginning to appear at monitoring stations across the globe. "We need to alert the International Geological Survey," Sarah said, already composing the emergency broadcast. But before she could send it, every piece of equipment in the facility suddenly went dark. For 3 heartbeats, there was absolute silence. Then, with a high-pitched whine, the systems rebooted themselves. The holographic displays flickered back to life, but they weren't showing seismological data anymore. Instead, geometric patterns danced across the screens, forming and reforming in impossible configurations. "It's some kind of code," Martins whispered, transfixed by the shifting symbols, "but unlike anything human-made." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the implications. "James, I don't think this was meant for us to find. Not yet, anyway." Within hours, the phenomenon had captured global attention. Similar signals were detected at every major fault line on Earth. The pattern was always the same, a rhythmic pulse followed by the mysterious geometric code. The world's greatest minds were called together to decipher its meaning, but the truth would prove far stranger than anyone could have imagined. At the hastily assembled Emergency Scientific Summit in Geneva, experts from every field gathered to share their findings. Dr. Chen presented her data to a room full of the world's leading scientists, her voice steady despite the weight of her discoveries. "The signals aren't random," she explained, gesturing to the complex patterns projected behind her. "They're responding to something. Our initial analysis suggests they're part of a vast network, all connected to what appears to be some kind of dormant technology buried deep within Earth's crust." The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief and speculation. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a prominent quantum physicist, stood up. "Are you suggesting that someone, or something, placed this technology there deliberately?" "Yes," Sarah replied, her voice firm. "And based on the depth and integration with Earth's geological structures, it's been there for millions of years, long before humans evolved." The implications were staggering. Humanity had just discovered proof that not only were they not alone in the universe, but that an advanced civilization had visited Earth in its ancient past and left something behind. Something that was now awakening. As the summit continued, new data poured in from around the world. The signals were getting stronger, and they were changing. What started as simple patterns had evolved into complex sequences that seemed to be testing various frequencies and energy outputs. Dr. Martinez, working with a team of cryptographers and linguists, made the next breakthrough. "It's not just a signal," he announced. The spires rose to a height of exactly 1 kilometer before stopping. Then, simultaneously, they began to emit a soft, blue-white light that pulsed in perfect synchronization. The pattern was different now, no longer a boot sequence, but what appeared to be a message. "It's a warning," Sarah realized as her computers finally began to decode the alien language. "No, it's a call to arms." The message, when finally translated, was simple but chilling. "The Harbinger's approach. The Guardian Network activates. Humanity's trial begins. As the world grappled with this revelation, astronomical observatories detected massive objects entering the outer solar system. Whatever the ancient guardians had been waiting for, it had arrived. And humanity found itself caught between an ancient defense system they didn't understand and an approaching force that threatened their very existence. Dr. Chen looked up at the spire gleaming in the desert sun, its purpose now clear. These weren't just alien artifacts. They were weapons platforms, placed on Earth millions of years ago by an advanced civilization that had foreseen this moment. The question now wasn't just whether humanity could understand the technology they'd been given, but whether they were ready to use it. The next few days would determine not just the fate of human civilization, but perhaps the destiny of all life in the galaxy. As night fell over the Atacama, the spire's light seemed to pulse in rhythm with the stars themselves. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Humanity would need to learn, adapt, and prove themselves worthy of the legacy they'd inherited. Sarah Chen closed her eyes and took a deep breath. In her mind, she could almost hear the ancient builders of this system, their message echoing across millions of years. We gave you the tools. Now show us what you can do with them. The ancient spires had been active for 72 hours when humanity received its first direct contact from the Harbingers. The message came not through conventional communications channels, but as a searing burst of energy that overwhelmed Earth's electronic systems for exactly 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, every screen on the planet displayed the same image. A vast armada of ships, their designs both beautiful and terrifying, moving through the darkness of space with inexorable purpose. The message that followed was brief but clear. Surrender the Guardian Network or face extinction. In the newly established Global Response Center in Geneva, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the recording for the 100th time, searching for any detail that might help them understand their enemy. Besides her, Admiral Helena Walsh, the recently appointed commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces, stood with her arms crossed. They're not giving us much time to decide, Walsh said, her voice tight with tension. The latest astronomical data shows their fleet will reach our solar system in less than 2 weeks. Sarah nodded, her attention fixed on the subtle patterns visible in the Harbinger ship's design. They don't expect us to decide at all. They think we're primitive, that we couldn't possibly understand the technology we found, let alone use it. And can we? Walsh asked, turning to face the scientist. Use it, I mean. Before Sarah could answer, the room's holographic display sparked to life, projecting a ghostly figure in its center. The figure was humanoid but clearly artificial, its form composed of shifting geometric patterns similar to those found on the spires. You can, the figure said, its voice resonating with an otherworldly harmony. That is why we chose your world. The room erupted in chaos as security teams rushed in, weapons drawn. Admiral Walsh raised her hand, ordering them to hold their positions. Who are you? She demanded. I am the Guardian Interface, an artificial intelligence created by those you would call the Builders. I have waited in dormancy for millions of years, watching your species evolve, waiting for the moment you would be ready. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. Ready for what? To inherit our legacy, the AI replied. The Harbingers are ancient enemies of all organic life. They seek to convert all biological matter in the galaxy into extensions of their own consciousness. The Builders created the Guardian Network to fight them, but they knew they could not maintain the fight forever. They needed successors, species with the potential to grow, adapt, and innovate in ways that artificial life cannot. The implications of this revelation rippled through the room. Humanity hadn't just stumbled upon alien technology. They had been chosen, observed, and tested over millions of years of evolution. The spires, Sarah said, sudden understanding dawning. They're not just weapons platforms, are they? They are terminals. The Guardian Interface confirmed. Access points to a vast network of defensive systems hidden throughout your solar system. But they require organic minds to operate them. minds capable of intuitive leaps, of finding solutions where pure logic fails. Admiral Walsh stepped forward. You're saying we need to interface directly with alien technology to fight an enemy that's already destroyed other civilizations. That's asking a lot of faith from us. The holographic figure shifted, its patterns becoming more complex. We ask nothing on faith. The builders left proof of their intentions and of humanity's potential. Dr. Chen, you have already begun to understand it. The patterns you've been studying, they're not just a language. They're keys to unlocking human potential. Sarah's eyes widened as she recalled the strange sensations she'd experienced while working with the Spire's signals, moments when the patterns seemed to resonate with something deep within her mind. The geometric code, she breathed. It's designed to activate something in our brains, isn't it? To help us interface with the technology. Yes, the Guardian confirmed. Your species has untapped potential for neural plasticity and pattern recognition that exceeds even the builder's capabilities. But awakening that potential requires trust and courage. Admiral Walsh looked between the AI and Dr. Chen, her military training warring with the unprecedented situation they faced. How many people would we need? 1,000 to start, the Guardian replied. 1,000 minds willing to connect with the network, to learn its systems, to become the first line of defense against what comes. And if we refuse? Walsh asked, though she already suspected the answer. Then the Harbingers will claim this world, as they have claimed countless others. Your species will cease to exist as individual beings, becoming mere components in their collective consciousness. Sarah stepped forward, her decision made. I volunteer, she said firmly. I've been working with the patterns since the beginning. I'm ready to take the next step. The Admiral studied her for a long moment before nodding. We'll need to brief the world governments, establish protocols, find other volunteers. She was interrupted by a sudden alert. The holographic display shifted to show new astronomical data. The Harbinger fleet had accelerated. They would reach Earth in less than a week. The Guardian interface's form flickered. Then we must begin now. Time grows short, and your species has much to learn. Sarah looked up at the artificial being, questions burning in her mind. What exactly will we become if we do this, if we merge with your technology? You will become what you were always meant to be, the Guardian replied. Not merely users of the network, but its evolution. The builders did not create these systems merely to be used. They created them to be transformed by human innovation and creativity. Around the world, the spires began to pulse with new patterns, calling out to those who could sense their purpose. The awakening had begun, and with it, humanity's transformation from observers to inheritors of an ancient legacy. The only question was whether they could master their new powers in time to face the coming storm. The transformation was unlike anything Sarah Chen had imagined. As she sat in the connection chamber beneath the Atacama spire, neural interfaces delicately arranged across her skull, she felt the first tendrils of the Guardian network touch her consciousness. It wasn't the cold, mechanical presence she'd expected. Instead, it felt like diving into an ocean of pure information, each thought branching into countless possibilities. Around the world, 999 others were experiencing the same awakening. They called them the interfaces now, the volunteers who would bridge the gap between human consciousness and the ancient defense network. Each person brought their own unique perspective, their own way of interpreting and innovating with the alien technology. The neural patterns are stabilizing, Dr. Martins reported, monitoring Sarah's vital signs. He had chosen to remain on the scientific side, coordinating with other research teams to understand and optimize the interface process. How does it feel? Sarah opened her eyes, which now held a subtle iridescent sheen. It's incredible. The builders, they didn't just create weapons. They created a whole new way of thinking, of existing. And they left room for improvement. They wanted us to make it our own. Through her enhanced perception, she could sense the other interfaces across the globe, each one discovering new aspects of the network's capabilities. A teenage programmer in Tokyo had already intuited how to improve the targeting systems. A retired architect in Kenya was redesigning the defensive shields based on principles of organic growth. They were all connected, all contributing to the evolution of the system. Admiral Walsh stood at the command center in Geneva, watching as holographic displays showed the progress of humanity's preparation. Time to activation. She asked the Guardian interface, which had become a constant presence in their strategic planning. The network is at 60% capacity, the AI responded. The human interfaces are adapting faster than projected. They're not just learning the systems, they're improving them. How is that possible? Walsh demanded. This technology is millions of years ahead of us. That was the builder's greatest insight, the Guardian explained. They understood that true advancement comes not from perfection, but from the ability to see things differently. Your species excels at finding unexpected solutions, at making intuitive leaps that pure logic would miss. The truth of this was proving itself hour by hour. The interfaces were discovering capabilities in the network that even the Guardian hadn't known existed. They were rewriting the rules of what was possible, combining human creativity with alien technology in ways the original builders could never have predicted. Sarah felt it all through her connection. Every breakthrough, every innovation rippling through the network. But she also sensed something else, something that filled her with both hope and terror. They're coming, she announced, her enhanced senses detecting disturbances at the edge of the solar system. The harbingers have accelerated again. The news sparked a fresh wave of activity. Around the world, military forces coordinated with the interfaces, preparing for humanity's first interstellar war. But it wouldn't be fought with traditional weapons. Each spire was now surrounded by fields of crystalline structures that had grown from the Earth itself, shaped by the combined will of the interfaces. These aren't just weapons platforms anymore, Sarah explained to the assembled leaders. We've transformed them into something new. The builders gave us the foundation, but what we've created goes beyond their original design. Through their shared connection, the interfaces had discovered that the geometric patterns weren't just a language or an interface. They were a fundamental code that could reshape reality itself. By understanding and modifying these patterns, they could alter the very fabric of space-time. We're not just defending Earth, Sarah continued, her enhanced consciousness processing possibilities faster than any computer. We're going to change the rules of the game entirely. The Guardian interface observed these developments with what could almost be called pride. You have exceeded all expectations, it told Sarah during a rare quiet moment. The builders hoped humanity would eventually learn to use their technology. Instead, you've transcended it. But there was no time to celebrate these achievements. The Harbinger fleet had crossed Neptune's orbit, their vast armada now visible to Earth's enhanced sensors. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Millions of ships moving in perfect synchronization, their crystalline forms reflecting the distant sunlight. They're transmitting again, Martins reported, as all screens once more filled with the Harbinger's message. Your resistance is noted. Your extinction will serve as an example to others. Sarah stood before the spire, feeling the power of the network coursing through her enhanced consciousness. Humanity had done more than just master the builder's technology. They had evolved it, transformed it, made it their own. Now it was time to show the Harbingers exactly what that meant. Through her connection to the network, she could sense the other interfaces preparing themselves. They were no longer just individuals but parts of something greater, not by surrendering their humanity as the Harbingers demanded, but by elevating it to new heights. Send them our response, she told Martinez, her voice resonating with the combined will of 1,000 enhanced minds. The message was simple, a declaration of humanity's determination. We are not your prey. We are the next evolution of the builder's legacy, and we are ready. As the words were transmitted, the crystalline structures around each spire began to pulse with energy, their patterns shifting in ways that defied conventional physics. Humanity had spent its entire existence looking up at the stars. Now, finally, they were ready to rise and meet them, not as victims or servants, but as inheritors of an ancient power and shapers of their own destiny. The Harbinger fleet arrived with the rising sun, their ships blotting out the stars like a metallic tide. Earth's defenders watched through both human eyes and enhanced senses as millions of crystalline vessels took up attack positions around the planet. The sight would have inspired paralyzing terror just days ago. Now, it only strengthened their resolve. Sarah Chen stood within the network's stream of consciousness, her enhanced mind linked with the other interfaces across the globe. Through their shared perception, she could see the intricate patterns of reality itself, and the ways they could be reshaped. The spires hummed with power, their crystalline arrays ready to implement humanity's innovations. They're launching their first wave, Admiral Walsh announced from the command center. The Harbinger ships had begun their advance, their formation perfect and unchanging, a sign of their artificial nature. "Let them come," Sarah responded, her voice carrying the confidence of 1,000 linked minds. "Let them see what humanity has done with their precious network." The Harbingers struck first, unleashing a barrage of energy weapons that could have vaporized Earth's atmosphere. But they weren't fighting just Earth anymore. As their attacks approached, the crystalline arrays around each spire pulsed with new patterns that humanity had created that went beyond the builder's original designs. The energy weapons didn't impact Earth's defenses. They simply ceased to exist, their patterns unwritten by the enhanced humans' manipulation of fundamental forces. The Harbinger fleet paused, their perfect formation showing the first signs of uncertainty. "Now," Sarah commanded, and humanity launched their counterattack. The spires released waves of crystalline drones, each one guided not by cold logic, but by human intuition enhanced by alien technology. They moved unpredictably, their patterns shifting and evolving in real time as the interfaces controlling them adapted to each situation. The Harbinger ships, for all their power, couldn't adapt to the chaos of human creativity. Their perfect formations became a weakness as Earth's forces attacked from angles they hadn't calculated, using techniques they couldn't predict. The first Harbinger ships began to fall, their crystalline forms shattering as humanity's innovations overwhelmed their defenses. But the Harbingers weren't defeated easily. They launched a second wave, this time targeting the interfaces themselves with weapons designed to sever their connection to the network. They had faced other species before, had defeated other chosen successors of the builders. They expected this attack to end the resistance. They were wrong. The human interfaces had modified their neural connections, adding layers of protection that the builders had never imagined. More than that, they had discovered something new about consciousness itself, something that made them more resilient than any previous species. "They don't understand," Sarah told Admiral Walsh as another wave of attacks dissipated harmlessly. "The builders chose us because we can imagine possibilities that pure logic would reject. We don't just use the network, we dream with it." Through their enhanced perception, the interfaces began to implement their most ambitious strategy. The crystalline arrays around the spires started to pulse with new patterns that reached beyond normal spacetime. The Harbinger fleet found their perfect formation disrupted as space itself seemed to fold and twist around them. "Impossible," the Harbinger collective transmitted, their first communication since the battle began. "These patterns violate fundamental laws." Sarah smiled, knowing their enemies still didn't understand. "The laws aren't being violated," she transmitted back. "They're being rewritten. Humanity has always excelled at changing the rules." The battle reached its crescendo as the Harbinger fleet launched everything they had. Planet-killing weapons, reality-warping devices, swarms of autonomous destroyers. But each attack was met with innovations they couldn't have predicted, defenses that evolved faster than they could calculate. The crystalline arrays pulsed with increasingly complex patterns as humanity pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The interfaces weren't just fighting. They were creating, innovating, discovering new applications for the builder's technology with every passing moment. The turning point came when Sarah, working with a network of other interfaces, implemented an idea that would have seemed impossible days ago. They didn't just deflect or absorb the Harbinger's energy weapons. They transformed them, converting the deadly attacks into fuel for Earth's defenses. The Harbinger fleet began to retreat, their perfect formation breaking down as they faced something they had never encountered in millions of years of conquest. A species that could outthink them, outmaneuver them, and most importantly, surprise them. "You have violated the natural order," the Harbinger collective transmitted as their ships withdrew. This level of advancement should not be possible in such a primitive species. Sarah's response, backed by the combined will of humanity's interfaces, was simple. "We're not advancing according to your order. We're creating our own." As the Harbinger fleet disappeared into deep space, their first defeat in eons complete, humanity's defenders maintained their vigilance. They had won this battle, but they knew it was only the beginning. The Harbingers would return, and they would not be alone. But Earth was ready. The spires stood tall, their crystalline arrays glowing with power, but they were no longer just alien technology. Humanity had made them their own, had improved them in ways even their creators hadn't imagined. And they weren't finished innovating. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, the planet had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The spires that once seemed alien now stood as monuments to humanity's potential, their crystalline arrays casting prismatic light across cities that had grown to embrace them. But the most profound changes weren't visible to the naked eye. Sarah Chen stood at the newly established Interstellar Command Center, her enhanced consciousness streaming data from across the solar system. The network of humanity's defenses had expanded far beyond Earth, with new installations on Mars, Europa, and throughout the asteroid belt. Each one bore the distinct signature of human innovation, technology that had evolved far beyond the builder's original designs. "The latest deep space scans are in," Dr. Martins reported, now leading Earth's Xenotechnology Research Division. "The Harbinger fleet has retreated beyond the galaxy's edge, but they're regrouping, and they're not alone." Sarah nodded, having sensed this through the network. "They're gathering others like them, ancient machine intelligences that fear what we represent." Through her enhanced perception, she could feel the distant ripples of their movements, their preparations for what would come next. Admiral Walsh, now the commander of Earth's growing space force, studied the holographic display of known space. "How long do we have?" "A few years, maybe less," Sarah replied. "But we'll be ready." The network grows stronger every day, and we're still just beginning to understand what we can do with it. The Guardian interface materialized beside them, its form more complex now after months of interaction with human consciousness. "You have already exceeded the builder's most optimistic projections," it observed. "They hoped you would master their technology. Instead, you have transcended it." This was true in ways that still amazed even those who had lived through the transformation. The interface program had expanded to include 10,000 humans now, each bringing new perspectives and innovations to the network. But they hadn't lost their humanity in the process. They had enhanced it. The crystalline arrays around each spire had become more than just defensive systems. They were now centers of learning, research, and evolution. Humanity had discovered that the geometric patterns underlying the technology could be applied to solving problems far beyond defense, from healing the environment to exploring the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. "We've received another transmission from the Proxima Centauri expedition," Martins announced, bringing up the data. The first human ships, built using their enhanced understanding of the builder's technology, had reached the nearest star system months ahead of schedule. They'd found something, ruins of another builder installation. Sarah connected to the expedition's feed, her enhanced mind processing the discovery. The ruins were different from Earth's installations, showing signs of unique adaptation by whatever species had inherited them. "The builders seeded more worlds than we thought," she realized. "We're not alone in this fight." Admiral Walsh leaned forward, strategic implications already forming in her mind. Other inheritor species, potential allies. If they survive the Harbingers, Sarah noted. But if they did, she reached out through the network, sending a pulse of energy through the geometric patterns that connected all builder technology. For a moment, there was silence. Then, incredibly, something responded. The holographic display erupted with new data as signals came in from across the galaxy. Other worlds, other species that had inherited builder technology. Some had hidden, some had fought, but all had survived. And now they could feel Earth's presence in the network, recognize the innovations humanity had brought to the ancient technology. "We're not just inheritors anymore," Sarah said, understanding flowing through her enhanced consciousness. "We're becoming what the builders hoped for, a new force in the galaxy, one that can unite organic and artificial life in ways they only dreamed of." The Guardian Interface's form shifted, displaying patterns that reflected this new reality. "The builders created the network to defend life," it said, "but you have transformed it into something that can nurture life, help it grow and evolve. You have taken their legacy and made it into something greater." Around the world, the spires pulsed with new energy as humanity's understanding continued to grow. They were no longer just defensive installations but beacons, calling out to other inheritor species across the galaxy. Earth had become more than just another protected world. It was becoming a beacon of innovation, a symbol of what was possible when technology and human creativity worked in harmony. "The harbingers will return," Admiral Walsh reminded them, ever the pragmatist. "And they'll bring an army." Sarah smiled, feeling the combined confidence of thousands of enhanced minds through the network. "Let them come. We'll be ready, and we won't be alone." The crystalline arrays shifted, displaying new patterns that represented possibilities even the builders hadn't imagined. Humanity had taken their first steps into a larger universe, not as conquerors or servants, but as innovators and unifiers. They had proven themselves worthy of the builders' legacy not by preserving it, but by transforming it into something new. As the sun set over the transformed Earth, its light refracting through the crystalline structures in ways that seemed to bend reality itself, Sarah Chen looked to the stars with new eyes. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and threats, but humanity would face it as they always had, with creativity, courage, and an unwavering drive to push beyond what others thought possible. They were no longer just Earth's defenders. They had become architects of a new age, bridge builders between the organic and the artificial, the past and the future. The legacy of the builders lived on, not as they had created it, but as humanity had reimagined it, endless in its possibilities, boundless in its potential.